All right, welcome back. As you can imagine, all NFL teams have been moved by this, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, who send their thoughts and prayers to Damar Hamlin, his family, and the Buffalo Bills. And of course, many members of the Pittsburgh Steelers got to know Damar since they were so close, working in the same building, essentially. And so, those relationships are deep. And a lot of players, I'm sure, are going to be just clinging to news tonight, and I'm sure we all do it on social media. Hopefully it's good news by the end. Again, he's in critical condition, hoping things get better overnight. We'll get the latest as it becomes available.
Bob, I want to say one more thing. Because one, we have a couple points of clarity. Apparently it was Zach Taylor who initiated the decision. He walked across the field to Sean McDermott. It sounds like Zach Taylor was the one who said, we're not going to do this. This is ridiculous. But there's a person who's been on my mind since the start of this, and it's T. Higgins, actually, because it's a good, hard football play. It's a good hit, T. Higgins trying to do his job as a receiver. And I just saw a tweet come through that he's basically, his mother's at the game, he's distraught. I hope T. Higgins specifically, because he's the other person directly involved in this, is talking to whoever he needs to talk to, whatever the outcome of this is, because I thought about that from moment one. That's the other guy involved here. He's doing his job. Hamlin's trying to do his job. And I'm sick for everybody involved, but in particular right now for Higgins, just being on the other end of that and having to witness what unfolded immediately thereafter. It's stomach turning, man. It's gut wrenching. I don't know, Bob. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole here, but it feels so weird to be talking about anything else in sports. It renders so many of the things that we say on a daily basis that people enjoy listening to, I would think, and watching, so inconsequential when you get a dose of real life like this.
Yeah, and too often we focus on the player and the fact that they make a lot of money and the fact that they get special treatment, whatever the case may be. You forget that they are people. If you get to know, we're in a position where we can get to know some of these guys, and you see them, what they do in the community, how they are normal people who are just pursuing a dream. And tonight that dream sort of became a nightmare for Damar Hamlin in the worst possible way. And I think that's a good point you make about T. Higgins. All he's trying to do is get extra yards. And it's a vicious game. About that hit, I don't know, when you saw it, I thought nothing of it. But when he got up, I said, oh man, he looks concussed because he was wobbly, and then he fell completely backwards. So thoughts in my head were of Tua Tagovailoa. We saw that video from earlier this year that he has a concussion, because we've been talking about concussion so much, but clearly at that point you knew it was worse. T. Higgins was a couple of shots I saw during this whole thing. You can tell that, you can't blame yourself, you can't blame him. It just was part of the play. But how do you feel when you're the person who administered the hit? I think it's an excellent point, and you feel badly for him, his family. He's going to be shaken up, no doubt, and hopefully he's in deep prayer right now for Damar Hamlin. So. Again, no further updates other than he does, according to a couple of these doctor reports I see, and I don't want to put too much information without double checking it, but critical condition, but maybe breathing a little bit on his own with a breathing tube in to help. So I don't know what that means, Chris, but all I hope for is that, as time goes on in the morning, we get some better news about this, because football does not matter. It's about life and death at this point.
Yeah, I hope the exact same thing. I think we all do. And I cannot shake the part of this that the league was going to have this game continue. This will be the last time you hear me say it. I just think about what you and I are talking about here, Bob. Think about I was driving in to come in here to do the show with you, and all I could think about was, what are we going to say? It's irrelevant in the scheme of things. And the league was going to go send these teams back out there. Hey, guys, get loose again. Show must go on. I would hope that whatever the outcome here is, that there's some soul searching done at the league office and among the league's owners about, really, God forbid something like this should happen again, how they're going to handle it and how they're going to move forward.
Yes, absolutely. Again, prayers out to the Hamlin family. We'll give you the latest as we get it, but right now, critical condition. I know some people do want to talk about this, so we're going to take, it looks like natives of McKees Rock or people who know Damar Hamlin. Let's try Gary in Washington. Gary, welcome to the show. How are you?
How you doing, Bob? How you doing, Chris?
Hey.
I watched that hit, and it shook me to the core. I'm not a fan of either team. I'm a Cowboy fan. You met me before, Bob, at the CVS and McKees Rocks. But
okay.
To see that hit and to see him get up and the way he was walking, then he just fell back, it shook me to the core right then and there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something that you don't want to see. he got up pretty quickly, Chris. That's what kind of threw me off. I thought, okay, he's fine, and then I don't know. Watching him collapse.
Bob, I know you're a fan of sports. Bob, I know you're a guy who's a fan of every sport. I refuse to say the name of the person, but there is a very infamous story of a guy getting up very quickly, and I think you know who I'm probably talking about. And it just that was the first thing that flashed through my head. And Ryan Clark had a good tweet. He said, all this stuff people say, the athletes themselves, the football players, I die on the field, this is war, etc. He said, it really is all talk. We're playing a game. None of us expects to go there, put on our uniform, and not come home that night, which drove it home some more. That's an all-time tough guy who put his body on the line to make plays, saying a lot of the stuff you hear really is just like, kind of chest beating and chest thumping. And these guys are just human beings who are there. They're, like you said, they're chasing a dream, but you just don't ever, even in your wildest nightmares, expect something like this to happen. I'm shook. I continue to be. I don't know how anybody could watch that and not have it leave an indelible mark on them.
Let's go out to Joe in North Versailles, who joins us right now. Joe, your thoughts?
Well, good can always come from bad. Tonight, I think, is a night of humanity and community. Certainly, I'm no fan of the Cincinnati Bengals, but I am a fan of their coach and team tonight. I really, as a fan, appreciated the way they handled things. Not so much, as Chris has pointed out, the NFL, but let's hope for the best. But sometimes the focus has to be on other things in sports, and tonight it is, and I think that's a good thing.
And I would add to that, that's a good call, thank you for it, the fans of Cincinnati. It was very quiet in there. Everyone, and of course everyone has some tie to social media, you can get news pretty quickly. But as soon as that news started to trickle out, you could tell the concern, the level of concern. And when the Bills ended up walking back to their locker room, an applause for that team and what they were going through. I thought their fans were very classy tonight. And Chris, you talk about that place, Shazier, but that's also the place where Burfict hit Antonio Brown. There were so many things. There was an umpire, I'm trying to remember.
John McSherry.
John
is the name
McSherry.
you're thinking of.
John McSherry, right.
Another tragedy.
Very much so. But those things happen. It's part of real life sports. Fortunately, we don't see it all that much, but when we do, I think it's time to reflect on the people involved, not the sport itself. And finally, the game was postponed, and I'm glad it was. It took a little too long for my liking, though. I know that.
Yeah, they should have postponed it pretty much immediately, is my thought. The NFL needs to step in. The NFL needs to have contingencies. You and I do this for a living. You obviously really do this for a living. I get to come here and have fun twice a week with you. I will say this, too, about one other part of this where a group of people I felt very uncomfortable for, and this was in a professional sense. And I think they did as good a job as they possibly could have, especially Booger McFarland talking about it. But at that point, if you're ESPN, I do think it's more appropriate to go to some sort of archival footage, an old game, and just have a ticker running on the bottom apprising viewers of why if they just tuned in, why they're not seeing what they're seeing. But I do know this much, just having briefly popped the TV on well after the injury occurred, you're in a tough spot if you're on TV being asked to fill time about that. Right. There's got to be a better way.
Yeah, with no information coming in. And so you don't want to say anything that you don't know.
Exactly.
You can't do that. We got to go to a break. We'll take it, come back with more right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.